In response to one of my recent videos, I had a Muslim repeat to me over and over again that the Quran was the word of the Creator, and although he never really defined what this supposed Creator was, I guess I'm supposed to assume it was Allah. We went around and around and around about the supposed scientific claims in the Quran, but even after I pointed out that I'd already done one video debunking one such claim, he just kept right on going, asking me to prove that said Creator wasn't real. I'm sorry, that's not how intellectual debate goes. I have no need to prove that the individual making claims is wrong in their claims. It rests wholly on their shoulders to prove that these claims are actually true. It doesn't matter how much blind faith or wishful thinking you have in these claims, that isn't going to convince anyone. You actually have to produce evidence. Now, for anyone who's been around YouTube or Twitter or any number of other social media sites online, you have surely encountered a raft of Muslim apologists making all kinds of claims that vague passages in the Quran actually refer to modern scientific discoveries in a very dubious manner. They're certainly not alone. Christians have been doing the same thing for decades, pretending that because they can twist and turn their religious book into a number of very bizarre, contorted ways, they can make it, quote-unquote, predict things that it certainly does not predict. In fact, followers of the 16th century seer Nostradamus continue to claim that he wrote down things 450 years ago that are only now coming to fruition. They're all wrong, and all for the exact same reasons. Unfortunately, these people use the term prophecy in a very vague and completely useless way. They assert that it somehow gives their religious book validity, and therefore that validity must come from their particular deity. These are claims that cannot be verified in any meaningful way. There have been people who have taken the plays of Shakespeare and crafted prophecies out of them. That doesn't make these prophecies any more or less valid than the ones that come from the quatrains of Nostradamus or the verses of the Bible or Quran. It's all a load of nonsense because it's all so vague and so twisted that it cannot be shown to be actually true. So let's look at an example from each of these sources, starting with Nostradamus. Followers are still making claims about things they say Nostradamus claimed would happen this very year. All of them are ridiculous and vague. In fact, some of the ones I've seen say that zombies would walk the earth, people would live for 200 years, and humans would talk to animals. There's really nothing to address here, although I will put a link to the website below. It is noteworthy that none of these supposed predictions give any specific dates or details that would lead us to believe that they were intended for a single event, and that's where all of these supposed prophecies fail. However, since I wanted to take a look at one, here's one that supposedly referred to 9/11. Volcanic fire from the center of the earth will cause trembling around the new city. 2 great rocks will make war for a long time. Then Arethusa will redden a new river. Now please explain how this couldn't refer to any number of things. Many adherents will blatantly cook the translation to make it fit their narrative. There are translations online where New City has been changed to City of New York, and 2 great rocks have been altered to read air vessels that spin around to a new course. The blatant dishonesty is absurd, but let's be honest, it's all about faith and not at all about reality. In fact, I've seen people use the exact same quatrain claiming it refers to a new volcanic eruption at Pompeii. Twist and turn, it doesn't refer to anything in particular. It's just a load of crap, and it doesn't fare any better when it comes to religion. For Christianity, let's look at one of the most obviously failed prophetic claims in the Bible, the destruction of Tyre, supposedly foretold on Ezekiel 26, 7-14. In this tale, it claims that God will cause King Nebuchadnezzar II to completely destroy the city of Tyre, such that not one stone will be left standing upon another, and the city will never be rebuilt again. Now, let's ignore the obvious failure because Tyre is a modern city in Lebanon with about 117,000 inhabitants. Clearly, it was rebuilt. Or, I guess it would have been rebuilt had Nebuchadnezzar actually ever destroyed it. The king laid siege to the city for 13 long years, but eventually they surrendered to Nebuchadnezzar's authority without ever having been destroyed. It was sacked 240 years later by Alexander the Great, but clearly it's been rebuilt and is doing quite well today. So how do apologists reconcile this clear and utter failure of their holy book? Well, they just shuck and jive and dance around, saying that what was written in the Bible isn't really what was meant by the Bible, even though this passage gives enough information to set it as a specific event. And no, the fact that Ezekiel knew about Nebuchadnezzar isn't all that surprising. It was written at the time that Nebuchadnezzar II was king of Babylon. So Ezekiel was there, he watched what was going on, he wrote it down, he got it completely wrong, and modern Christian apologists can't see the forest through the history. It's just sad. Then we move on to Muslim territory, and honestly, since I've already demonstrated one failed prophecy in the Quran, I probably don't need to take on another, except to say that I've found the vast majority of supposed prophetic claims to be entirely empty. As I showed in my video, Muslims will simply take verses in the Quran, claim that they are prophetic, demand that they are true, and then simply presume that because they have to be true, they actually are true without ever bothering to demonstrate that they are. It's like saying, my book has said the dead will rise, and since my book can never be wrong, the dead have already risen, praise be to Muhammad. Sorry, that's not impressive, and that's not how you evaluate claims. If you want to see a lot of these, Twitter is the home to multitudes of Muslim spammers. Go watch the atheism or atheist hashtags for a while. You'll find a huge number of people posting tons and tons and tons of these and refusing to respond to the absurdity of a single one. So why do we reject these things? Because the supposed prophecies, without exception, are vague and meaningless. They require the interpretation of a modern-day apologist who can only look back on events and identify the prophecies. They can never tell us what is going to happen before it actually does. Every single time that some religious apologist makes a prediction about upcoming events, foretold by the text in the Bible or the Quran or Nostradamus, they always get it wrong. Always. Take Harold Camping. You remember him? He predicted, based on his understanding of the Bible, that Jesus would return on September 6, 1994, and failed. Just like his 3 previous predictions. His final prediction came when he said the world would end in 2011. He claimed he was flabbergasted when the rapture didn't actually happen. He then revised his figure to October 21st, 2011, after saying that he wasn't going to return any of the millions of dollars followers had donated to spread the word. Yeah, that's a big surprise there, isn't it? Of course, he's not the only one making failed predictions. Just since the year 2000, no less than 29 failed predictions of the end of the world from across the world of religion have entirely failed to come true. This is not a sign of a clear and unambiguous prophecy from the Bible. This is a sign that crazy religious people are desperate to find fame. If these prophecy mongers really want to be convincing, they're going to have to produce something that's actually impressive. If they want to predict the end of the world, we need a specific date. I'll settle for a specific year. For other events, I want details that don't require interpretation. For the Muslims who want to claim that the Quran predicted scientific discoveries, I want to see those discoveries in detail. I want scientific formula that they couldn't possibly have known existed. I want a detailed explanation of modern scientific ideas. Of course, we know these things simply don't exist, leaving both the Christians and the Muslims trying to contort their beliefs to come up with things that just aren't there. I also want any prophecies, beyond having to be very specific, to be impossible for modern man to create. It isn't impressive to claim that the Quran predicts that a tree will fall on a certain day in a certain place if any Muslim can just walk out there with an axe and cut it down. That's not a prediction. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. In short, it has to be something that's really special, something that cannot be denied and cannot be faked. That's just not what we see in these ancient books of mythology, and the harder the Christians and Muslims try to make something out of nothing, the harder the skeptics will just laugh at their efforts. Thanks for listening. If you have any actual prophecies that you want me to take a look at, or if you have any actual evidence for any of the prophecies that you're claiming actually happened, send them my way. I'm not holding my breath, but hey, I'm open to being proven wrong, unlike the religious. Like and subscribe. Send any useful comments, criticisms, or questions into the comments below. And please stand by. I'll be back with another video soon.